The reason why the fine structure constant is a dimensionless number is because human consciousness operates and functions at the universal constant frequency of 1/137th of the speed of time. Now the speed of time is measured relative to the field of time within which that consciousness operates and functions. The number 137 stems from the ratio of the orbital velocity of equilibrium of the geodesic shell at which the consciousness operates relative to the Hill sphere geodesic velocity of the host field of time within which the individual consciousness exists and operates. At the macro scale, in cosmology for instance, the radius of the 137 geodesic shell of the field of time is recognised as the Roche sphere limit of a massive object. Now, in relation to the field of time of the Earth, the 137 Roche sphere geodesic shell exists approximately 3,200 kilometres above the surface of the Earth. At the micro scale, the equivalent 137 Roche sphere geodesic of the field of time of all atoms of which our body is made, in other words, organic matter, equates with the electron orbital shell of neutral hydrogen. In all cases of the existence of an atom of matter, the field of time within which the formation of that atom occurs can be regarded as a daughter field of time, which is branched off from its host parent field of time. The field of time of the planet represents the parent field of time from which the daughter field of time of every atom of matter of which our body is made has branched off from. The aspect of our consciousness which exists, operates and functions at the Roche sphere of the planet, which I describe as the prime consciousness, controls every voluntary physical movement of our body. This aspect of our consciousness can be described as the origin of the conscious intentionality to voluntarily move a part of our body in three-dimensional space. Since consciousness exists at a geodesic shell of equilibrium, the dimensionless domain in which consciousness operates and functions is synonymous with the dimensionless vacuum of empty space and is indistinguishable from the vacuum of empty space. In this model, equilibrium has an intrinsic velocity as determined by the radius of the geodesic shell within the field of time. The movement of the virtual body, as imagined by the prime consciousness, is the smooth and continuous movement of virtual atoms occurring within a virtual three-dimensional space. The virtual atom is perceived as having made a linear movement in time from A to B. However, the real situation is that the coordinate B represents the beginning of the formation of an atom at a static coordinate in the space-time continuum. In this scenario, the atom which existed at coordinate A ceases to exist, coinciding with the re-establishment of the equilibrium at that specific coordinate. The precise position of coordinate B is entirely at the whim of where the disembodied conscious intentionality chooses it to be. As such, from the perspective of an external observer, the position of B is entirely unpredictable. The atom itself can only be ascribed as possessing rest weight and mass during its own formation period of Planck time. An individual consciousness, in the form of the intentionality to move, continues to operate and function at the 137 geodesic electron shell of the field of time of the atom during the formation process of that atom. A consciousness can only make the quantum jump from coordinate A to coordinate B only when the equilibrium process at coordinate A is re-established. This principle acts as a brake or torque on the rate at which atoms can be accelerated from a state of rest. Our consciousness only perceives physical reality during the formation period of the atom. The opposing resistance, which is felt on the acceleration of any given massive object, is a consequence of the quantized brake on the rate at which consciousness can jump from one coordinate in spacetime to another. We perceive this phenomena as representing the inertial rest weight of the atom. Similarly, we ascribe the period of Planck time of the formation of a specific atomic element as representing the mass of that atomic element. The prime consciousness, which exists at the 137 Roche sphere of the planet, can only perceive physical reality through the conduit of the aspect of our sentient self-aware consciousness, which exists and operates at the 137 electron shell of the organic atoms of which our body is made. As such, through the five senses of our body, our prime consciousness perceives that it exists in the physical body, that it is the physical body, and that therefore that all aspects of our consciousness must reside within the organic matter of the body. However, the idea that all of our voluntary physical actions is governed and controlled by a dimensionless metaphysical aspect of our consciousness, which is separated from the physical body, perfectly explains the findings of Benjamin Libet's experiments from the 1970s, experiments on the subject of free will. At any given moment in time, the 137 geodesic shell of the planet represents the quantum computer memory bank, the depository of every individual thought of every human being on the planet at that specific moment in time. Ultimately, the 137 wavelength of the Roche sphere of the planet at any given moment in time can be regarded as representing the truest reflection of the global state of society on the planet at that epoch in time. In other words, it represents the collective global consciousness of humanity. Now, an individual person has instantaneous access to their own personal store of memories at the Roche sphere geodesic, by virtue of the fact that the personal memories are tuned into the same DNA frequency as that of the sentient consciousness of the individual where the memory originated. It is my contention that the 137 Roche sphere geodesic shells of every habitable planet in the universe represents one end of an Einstein-Rosen bridge, otherwise known as a wormhole portal, connecting two separate points in the space-time continuum. Now, it is a fact that the only medium which is theoretically capable of traversing a geodesic wormhole without disrupting the equilibrium of that wormhole would be the photons of equilibrium, which represent the bosons of a field of time. It is my contention that the one-to-one correspondence between two planets separated in time and space facilitates the DNA transfer of an individual consciousness at the moment of death from one planet to another in the space-time continuum, and furthermore that the process of itself is infinite. It is my contention that the aspect of our consciousness, which I have been referring to as the prime consciousness, and which resides at the Roche sphere of the planet, is nothing less than the individual immortal soul of that human being. Now, an individual soul is immortal by virtue of the fact that the process of the perpetual reincarnation of that soul within the fractal geometry of the infinity of field of times is infinitely scalable, and that the process of perpetual reincarnation is a fundamental condition of every immortal soul, from which that soul has no get-out escape clause. Behind every voluntary physical action you make and every decision you make, there is an underlying intentionality initiating that action. And that intentionality can either be altruistic and benevolent or malicious and malevolent. And since the only aspect of your existence which is recorded in the 137 geodesic Roche sphere is the intentionality behind your actions and the decisions you make in your life, then that intentionality, and whether it was altruistic or malicious, is all that matters and will determine what kind of society you will experience in your next reincarnation. However, I'll discuss the profound implications inherent in this fundamental principle in my next video.